thank you, Father. How you doing? In the name of Lord and Savior, Shine, Holy Spirit, walk with us and walk. Abanawa, Shikwa, Shimayim, Kadash, Haya, Shukra, Haya, Anakwaka, Raksawanka, Haya, Aisha, Raksa, Kawa, Haya, Bashimayim, Ananawa, Kam, Kayawan, Wasalaknawa, Waknawa, Kasalaknawa, Yanawa, Wala'a, Wa'anawa, Wanasaya one, Abal, Kawashaya Nawa, Men Rai Kaya Laka, Amlakwa, Wa'ala, Wa'atapa'art, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Shemai, Yasharala, Ahaya, Ahaya, God. Shemai, Yasharala, Ahaya, God. Shemai, Yasharala, Ahaya, God. Hero Israel, the Most High Power, Ahaya, is one.
And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other God before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless. That taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day. To keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor. And do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, and that days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is thy neighbor. And all the people said, all right, you know what? I do apologize, guys, for the late start. What we're going to do, I think we're going to skip the testimony, just for time's sake. And we're just going to proceed with the book of Job. And we are reading, I believe, chapter 17
16.
So hold on, I think I made a mistake here.
Shalom. Steve, Benjamin, nation of Israel. Job chapter 16. Then Job answered and said, I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are ye all. Shall vain words have an end, or what emboldeneth ye that thou answerest? I also speak as ye do. If your soul were in my soul's stead, I could heap up words against you, and shake my head at you. I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the moving of my lips should assuage your grief. Assuage your grief. Assuage your grief. Though I speak, my grief is not assuaged, and though I forbear, what am I eased? But now he hath made me weary. Thou hast made desolate all my company.
Shalom, everybody. I go by the name of Salazar Nazari, the nation of Israel. Verse 8. And thou hast filled me with wrinkles, which is a witness against me. And my Venus rising up in me beareth witness to my face. He teareth me in his wrath, who hated me. He dashed upon me with his teeth. Mine enemy sharpened his eyes upon me. They have gapped upon me with their mouth. They have smitten me upon the cheek reproachfully. They have gathered themselves together against me. The Most High hath delivered me to the ungodly, and turned me over into the hands of the wicked. I was at ease, but he had broken me asunder. He had also taken me by the neck, and shaken me to pieces, and set me up for his mark. His archers compass me round about. He cleaveth my reins asunder, and doeth not spare. He poured out my gall upon the ground. He breaketh me with breach upon breach. He runneth upon me like a giant.
I have so sharp clothes upon his head, and they find my horns in the dust. My face is full with weeping, and on my eyelid it is shadow of death. Not for any injustice in my hands, also my pride is pure. O hurt, cover not thou my blood, and let my cry have no place. Also, now behold, the witnesses in heaven, and my record is in heaven. My friends scorn me, but my heart's pure, all tears of the Most High. Oh, that one might plead for a man with God, as a man pleadeth for his neighbor. When the few years are come, then shall go the way once I shall not return.
All right. Now, any questions or better, can anyone explain the context of what we're reading? So we know Job. Reading Job, as I said, over the last few weeks has been like, kind of keeping the hair, so to speak. It's like you really have to pay attention on the arguments that are being posed there. Right? So we know Job, his friends, constantly, and are finding accusations against him, finding the reason to explain the condition that he is in. Right? Job is replying to, I believe it was Eliphaz's last complaint. And basically same narrative. Job, you're wicked, you did something, and this is why it's happened to you. Now what's Job's reply here? Or what's Job saying here in this chapter here? Anybody, what's some of the things he's saying? Verse up. Okay, so he's still maintaining his plea that he's innocent, right? What about the criticism of his friends? What are you saying regarding his friends?
He's saying that he could say the same things about them that they're saying about him.
Yeah, so Job was like, if I was in your predicament, it would be easy for me to say the same things you guys are saying. But the difference between me is that I would comfort you rather than criticize you during this time. And let's get that. Let's start from verse 1. Let's get that in the NA. We'll go to the NLT.
So we're at Job chapter 16, verse 1 in the NLT. Then Job spoke again. I have heard all this before. What miserable comfort are you are, Slakia. Won't you ever stop blowing hot air? What makes you keep on talking? I could say the same things if you were in my place. I could spout of criticism and shake my head at you. But if it were me, I would encourage you. I would try to take away your grief. Instead, I suffer if I defend myself, and I suffer no less if I refuse to speak.
Right? So, if I say nothing, all I do is hear the criticism. And then when I do reply, it just worries out my soul. So whether I say something or don't say nothing, I'm irritated. Right? Anything else? Yeah, it's not helping this scenario, right? But what does it speak about Job's friends? Say that again? They're not really friends. Right? Because if they were friends, they would be there to support them during this trying time. They would comfort them during this trying time.
Yeah.
But they were set there to do what? To be his what? To be his accusers. Right? Now, who really set them? And who is he? The what? Alright, you guys are going with this, right? So the master accuser sent these three accusers to lay those accusations against Job. Right? And we know that prior to this, when Job, when he lost his house, when he lost his finances, when he lost his riches, lost his children, lost everything, how though that was Satan directly battling with him one-on-one. And when all those things were unable to phase Job or to really cause him to curse the Most High, because it did phase him. But when those things didn't get him to blaspheme the Most High, remember Satan came to him and said, okay, you know what? I wrestled against you. There's nothing I can do. You won this battle. And then, he made it seem like he's going to just fall back and leave Job alone. But in fact, he started to work through those that were, friends of Job, associates with Job. And he started to, give them the quote-unquote wisdom, which, wasn't really wisdom, but the wisdom to try to confound him. And the one thing they couldn't do, they couldn't shift Job off his way of thinking, off of his belief, off of his hope. Even though Job never understood majority of, how the Most High works, those who come to serve the Most High prepare yourself for trials and whatnot, and that's what he's going through. Even though he never understood that, he held firm to what he did know, right? And when we look at it from that sense, we're dealing with, we probably don't deal with it to the extent where Job was, but it's hard. It's hard walking with integrity in a world that's so saturated with sin. And if we don't hear it from colleagues, family, work friends, it's on TV, it's on social media, it's on so many different outlets on why, we should lose hope, why, we should plug back into the world. And, Job serves as that testimony that, look, no matter what the adversary is throwing at us and ideas he's trying to invoke in us, we can't lose hope on what the Most High has for us, right? But let's continue. Anything else, though? Anything else anybody else can say? Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, in some cases, you don't know who your real friends are until you reach that point, right?
And I believe too, in the end, around verse 18 to 22, he was more like begging to the Most High, like he thought he was gonna die. I think he more or less give up. He was going through so much that he felt like it's time for him to go, but he wanted to go in a way that he left a righteous testimony.
Well, I think for him, and he says it. Well, sorry, I don't want to stop your thought there. He said he was giving a righteous testimony.
Yeah, I think in the end he was more begging for his life. He didn't want to die in that crisis, the things that he was going through. But he was prepared that if he had to go, he wanted to go, that he left a righteous impression that he still had faith in the Most High.
Well, we can see, he wanted to be proven that he wasn't walking. He wanted to prove his case right. So even if he was like, just take me or whatnot, but at least, speak about my innocence, right? And that's what he says, the earth will testify and all the people will testify to his innocence. So that was in somewhat his standard, his integrity was, keeping that intact was important. But one more verse I want to get. Let's get verse 12. Yeah.
Verse 12. NLT. I was living quietly until he shattered me.
Hold on. Actually, you know what? Let's start a few verses, bro. Let's start with verse 10.
People jeered and laughed at me. They slapped my cheek in contempt. A mob gathers against me. Most High has confounded. He has tossed me into the hands of the wicked.
You know what?
I was living quietly until he shattered me. He took me by the neck and broke me in pieces. Then he set me up as his target. And now his archers surround me. His arrows pierce me without mercy. The ground is wet with my blood. Again and again he smashes against me, charging at me like a warrior. I wear burlap to show my grief. My pride lies in the dust. My eyes are red with weeping. Dark shadows circle my eyes.
All right. So in this phrase here, you say the Most High, against me. He's like, he's surrounding me with archers. He's constantly throwing arrows at me, right? Now, when we look at this, who was casting the arrows at him? The wicked one, right? But hold on, read that again. Sorry, read verse 10 for me again.
People jeered and laughed at me. They slapped my cheek in contempt. A mob gathers against me.
Go on.
The Most High has handed me over to sinners. He has tossed me into the hands of the wicked. I was living quietly until he shattered me. He took me by the neck and broke me in pieces. Then he set me up as his target. And now his archers surround me. His arrow pierced me without mercy.
All right. Now, we touched on this over and over again, but Job in a lot of cases felt like the Most High, was attacking him personally, right? And, a lot of times without the proper understanding, sometimes we can feel that way. right? A lot of us would be like, I'm gonna say even myself, prior to the truth, there was times in my life where I'm like, yo, why is God allowing this to happen? Why did the Most High allow this to happen to me? And even though, it was thoughts out of ignorance, out of understanding, because we never understood this game and how the adversary works, it's easy to look at it from one side, right? But we know it's the adversary that shoots darts at the righteous. It's the enemy that does these things, right? So I just kind of want to highlight that. But I also want to highlight the fact that, some of these things some of us, we will go through. We will be laughed at, we'll be mocked, we'll be scorned for taking our stands with the Most High, for taking our stands for the things that we believe. You know what I mean? And depending on what she left behind, that challenge, I'm going to say it varies, or that's not the word I'm looking for. Each person's challenge, depending on what they left behind, will be a little bit harder. So I always talk about, those that were, part of this world, the culture and all these things, and now you're leaving those things behind and the lifestyle that comes with them. And you're seeing your peers, your friends, and all these, and everybody else still plugged into the world. And, plugged into the world, and not only plugged into the world, but anybody watch Elder Ricardo's blog talk this week? The deception of, what was it called? The deception of prosperity. So everybody now who's still plugged in is chasing that illusion of prosperity. And you're seeing everybody somewhat, because Satan can sell this illusion well. And we're seeing, you see people and whatnot, and everybody's looking at you like, you chose the Most High over this. And friends, some friends will mock you, some friends will criticize you, some friends will not look at you as the same. Or in some cases, they'll look at you as the former shadow of yourself. Meaning he's not who he used to be or who she used to be, how she carried herself, how she carried herself, how she dressed, all those things that come with that image that we once had being a part of the world, right? But let's move on to the next chapter. Yeah. All right, let's continue.
Chapter 17. My breath is corrupt, my days are extinct. The graves are ready to leave. Are there not mockers with me, and doth not my eye continue in their provocation? Lay down now, put me in the surety with thee. Who is he that will strike hands with me? For thou hast hid their heart from understanding, therefore thou shalt not exalt them. He that speaketh flattery to his friends, even the eyes of his children shall fail. He hath made me also a byword of the people, and aforetime I was as a tabret. Mine eye also is dim by reason of sorrow, and all my members are as a shadow. Upright men shall be astonished at this, and the innocent shall stir up himself against the hypocrite.
The righteous also shall hold on his ways, and he that hath ignorance shall be stronger. But as for you, do ye return to come now? For I cannot find one wise man among you. My days are past, my purposes are broken off, even the thoughts of my heart. They change the night into day, the light is short because of darkness. If I wait, the grave is my house. I have made my bed in the darkness. I have said to corruption, thou art my father. To the world, thou art my mother and my sister. And where is now my hope? As for my hope, who shall seek it? They shall go down to the bars of the gates, when our rest together is with us.
All right. Any questions? Now I said Job is one of those books, the more I hear these arguments, the more I get hearing his friends and the ridicule. And even just the spirit that Job is in, because we can tell that he's really in a crushed spirit, right? Where he says, my life is crushed, and my life is nearly stuffed out. The grave is ready to receive me. I am surrounded by mockers, and watch how bitterly they taunt me. You must defend my innocence, O Most High, since no one else will stand up for me. You have closed their mind to understand it, but do not let them triumph. They betray their friends for their own advantage, so let their children faint with hunger. God has made a mockery of me among the people. They spit in my face. My eyes are swallowed with weeping. I am but a shadow of my former self. And this is what I was talking about. The virtuous are horrified when they see me. The innocent rise up against the ungodly. The righteous keep moving forward, and those with clean hands become stronger and stronger. As for all of you, come back with a better argument. Though I still won't find a wise man among you. My days are over, my hope has disappeared, my heart desires are broken. These men say that night is day, they claim that darkness is light. What if I go to the grave and make my bed in darkness? What if I call the grave my father, and the maggot my mother, or my sister? Where then is my hope? Can anyone find it? No, my hope will go down with me to the grave. We will rest together in the dust. Just wanted to kind of give a clear context of what's being said here in this chapter. But it's talking about, we were talking about that former self. Can anyone relate to that though? That former self? Dealing with, how people want to use you and how they view you now. Anybody dealing with it? Right. So they won't let you pass go. So the groups and the things that you were, and to some degree it's good and bad, because to some degree we don't want to be part of everything, so to speak. Right? Okay. Anybody else? How about the young ox? How you guys dealing with that? Challenging? Okay. So basically you're saying you set the standards. You be the leader rather than allow the world or the masses to lead you. Right? And that's challenging, especially at your age when you say it. Right? Anybody else though? How do you guys deal with the former selves? Former church colleagues? How's that go? Struggle?
Yeah, I just try to avoid certain conversations and when it seems like this is an argument, I just
So they look at you like pretty much, I'm talking about your old brothers that.
I'm talking about family and even former church members.
Yeah.
They see me as I've left the faith.
Alright. So like you abandoned them. And you're pretty much the guy they don't want to have around. Yeah, the rebel, so to speak, right?
So
Many.
it's like walking the fine line in our conversation. Just try to keep it in a place where there is no argument.
Okay. So trying to keep the peace where need be, right? And to some degree, I mean, that's the wisdom that Christ gives us, right? Because he says, cast not thy pearls, unto swine, and least they tread you on it, right? Paraphrasing. So that's in terms of sharing. But what about the perception? People's perception.
Well, for the perception, I think something I learned over time is it's not so much about what you say, but when they see your lifestyle and they can't really challenge it with respect to what is in the Bible, then they have nothing to say. But you can tell they are watching. So it's like they are confused about what's going on. You can see it from their faces, from their outlook, but they don't know how to deal with it. But you can tell they are watching. And some of them are watching for you to sleep, so they can come at you.
Right.
Some of them are trying to understand what's going on with this guy. But they are watching, for sure.
I mean, yes, definitely people are watching to see what comes of the choice you made, right? But what about those that, got baptized, went through that time period where the Most High was trying you, remolding you, breaking you down and whatnot, and you're going through that, but you're also dealing with, that identity issue. So even though it's not your peers necessarily looking at you, it's yourself looking yourself in the mirror and say, this is who I used to be. And this is who I'm becoming. And it's challenging. Brother Mac?
We reading the truth over time. It's something that incrementally grows in you because you have to make decisions along the way. You have to cut people off. And the truth, by being in the truth, if this is actually the truth, it sets you free from a lot of things that normally, if you're caught up in the world, what people think and what people say and all these things, over time, if this is the truth, and which I believe it is, it will speak for itself as a testimony to the people that we left along the way or don't speak to anymore or whatever the deal is.
All right. I definitely believe that.
You have to make some tough decisions.
But at the same time, we know that, for instance, in some cases, we won't see these promises until the end. Right? In some cases, the Most High will bless us and give us what we need to make it to the end. But in some cases, the reward for the choice we made is not guaranteed to the end. Right? So it's really the hope that we have to maintain, knowing that we have something at the end of it. But it's not like, we're going to see tomorrow. Right? And I don't want to downplay because there's other things where the Most High has blessed us in. Right? But I think to some degree, we deal with that human tendency of, human perception or how we perceive ourselves in this world. And it can become challenging at times, right? And well, that's the question. That's the thing. But the question that I'm really asking is how do we get through those feelings? How do we, how are we doing with those feelings? Because it's real. And the adversary is doing everything, especially right now, everything to say, hey guys, even though I'm falling, this kingdom's falling, it's not that bad. Money's still flowing.
Christ, he didn't deal with him very well, and we have to know that's part of the walk, that we dealt with.
Right.
According to this world,
Right.
Christ is what we look at.
Right? So the question that I'm asking, I'm not really worried, right? But when we see those that are in the world, the sinners, and I'm not saying everyone in the world, I'm saying those in the world, but also the sinners that are openly in that life, prosper. And we are struggling. Right? How do we do it?
We have to look beyond the physical because it's like the man to be story
Right.
becomes part of you because you're looking forward to a hope with Christ, a future with Christ, not necessarily a fallen world of Babylon because
Right.
false,
Right. So the thing, and I'm asking some hard questions. Don't mind me. I'm just trying to invoke some thoughts, some real thoughts here. Brother Chris?
Yeah, when people talk, if they could stand as well, just because we have just the one mic today.
Okay.
And then online, Sister Donna said people around her feel like she's being brainwashed and being fooled by a false doctrine.
So she's dealing with that in that aspect of whatnot, right? But the reality is, guys, is that in a lot of cases is that we have to look at it like this. We can have our piece of this and suffer later, or we can suffer now and enjoy it, and enjoy it forever. Not later, forever. Eternal. Now, am I saying suffering is guaranteed and all this? No. Following the Most High, it's not. But it is a reality, and it is a thing that we have to deal with. And when we look at the story of Job, Job was going through that specific period where everybody, Job saying, I used to go to the city and people used to greet me, salute me, because he was a king. Now people are spitting in my face, slapping my face. My friends and those that used to exalt me or, honor me or respect me as a friend are now my accusers. And in a lot of cases, these are the similar things that we have to face making this choice. Right? Christina?
It depends on how you look at it. So sure, some are prospering and just air quotes, but they're deaf, they're blind, they can hear, and sometimes I feel bad for them that their eyes are glazed, they're not hearing the trumpets being sound. So we kind of flip it, especially in this truth. They don't have
I like that
what they
answer.
need, and we have what we need.
I like that answer. And I tell you why, because it tackles the illusion. Right? So even though the wicked are prospering, because you have to understand, Satan uses the wicked to prosper in order to pull people in because, it looks successful. Right? So he'll, allow a few to prosper to sell that lifestyle to the masses, and the masses chases false perception, right? But I look at this whole finances thing, this whole money thing, and not against accumulating wealth, not against that, because we could see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. There's none in the Bible that had finances, but they had the fear and the love of the Most High up above their finances, priority-wise. So we're not, denouncing, saying, hey, have finances in order and whatnot. We're not. But the part that I'm more dealing with is that many people in the world, that's their security. That's their hope. That's their, their God in some cases. Well, they're about to strip this whole world of it. Everything's about to go digital. You see what I'm saying? So, the Bible tells you there's coming a time where gold, money, all these things will be cast in the street. So this time where everybody, the wicked's prospering, it's about to end. Judgment is coming. So while we battle that and content sometimes with enduring and going through some of the hardships that we have to endure through, especially during this time, because at the end of the day, we know who they're targeting the righteous. But as we go through it, we have to endure and understand that, what? Our time is coming out. This kingdom is about to fall. In the end of the day, only the wisdom, the same thing that you said, that wisdom, being able to see, will be the only prosperity of the time. It's that time when men and his understanding will be priceless as gold. You'll have people that are willing to give you everything. I was reading something today and it was like, you know what, all those who have money, beer clothing, they have it for the meek and for the righteous. Because all those things, there's another parable, man who accumulated all that wealth, not knowing tomorrow he's going to die. Where do you think came and got that? The Most High kept those things for the righteous. Right? Even when we came out of Egypt, who did we spoil? It wasn't the righteous we spoiled. All those things that the Egyptians were accumulating and whatnot. Thank you guys. We're going on that journey now. Right? So, it's very important that as we see the world functioning on one leg still, that we don't allow the smoking mirrors, the flashing lights, and all those things to weigh us down. Because they can. Right? And I say that I have friends that I have friends that are who do business out there, but I have friends that are well off. And at times you wrestle with that because you're like, I'm the former. I'm the former of who I once was. But at the same time, who I once was and who I am now is far greater. Because like you said, the understanding is priceless. The Most High has given us the keys to release souls from this prison. And in fact, release us from this prison. And because of that, we are, I'm going back to last night's lesson. We are and we will become the enemies of the state. Right? But, let's go on, let's get some praise and worship. Anything else before we move on from Job? Alright, let's get some praise and worship, guys. will sing praise unto thee. I will worship towards thy holy temple, and praise thy name, for thy loving kindness, and for thy truth. For thou hast magnified thy word above all thy name. In the day when I cried, thou answerest me, and strengthenest me with strength in my soul. All the kings of the earth shall praise thee, O Lord, when they hear the words of thy mouth. Yea, they shall sing in the way of the Lord, for great is the glory of the Lord. Though the Lord be high, yet has he respect unto the lowly. But the proud he knows afar off. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, thou wilt revive me. Thou shalt stretch forth thy hands against the wrath of my enemies, and thy right hand shall save me. The Lord will perfect that which concerns me. Thy mercy, O Lord, endureth forever. Forsake not the work of thy own hands. Remember what it said? Amen. All right. So in a world saturated in sin and excess, we often find ourselves in serious battles just to keep focus from day to day. Our moral standards slip while we attempt to live to the standards of our decaying society. The society themselves follow the standard of Satan, whether consciously or not. We follow the devil to our own destruction. The Bible is the only way that we can overcome our flesh and ultimately live according to the Father's will. Let us use these last moments of existence in an effort to find the Father's will and overcome our flesh as time is slowly slipping away. Let's say Hosea chapter 4, let's get 6 to 7. All right, let's go. Everyone there?
Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore will I change their glory into shame.
Right? So we put the Most High's laws, which kept us morally sound behind us, and pick up Satan's laws of confusion. There was a time where we feared the Father and knew when things went wrong that we should call upon him in faith. The more foolishness we acquired in this world, the more we forget about him and we serve our spiritual we sever our spiritual ties in exchange for sin. We reject the Most High and his knowledge, so Satan had a space where he could now plug in his own destructive knowledge into our children. Right? So, in some cases, some of us started off, innocent, and then the more we started to advance in this world, experiences, things we go through and whatnot, in some cases, the more we got plugged into sin. To the point where now, I'm just going to read it again. There was a time where we feared the Father and knew when things went wrong, and we should call on him in faith. The more foolishness we acquired in this world, the more we forgot about him and severed our spiritual ties in exchange. Right? Anyone can give us some examples of that? So I know I can think of one. Now I remember being young, right, when I was younger. I grew up in a household where it was like, it wasn't really a church household, but it was a household where, okay, God, we knew, my dad, dad was a Rasta and whatnot, so we knew about God. God, God is a factor within the black household. For me, it was there. But I never grew up in, some of us come from families where church was every week, whatnot, so we had that foundation, right? And, but regardless of not having that upbringing, I still understood that there was a God, and I understood that, when I was going through hard times, or when I had desires and whatnot, I would pray towards the Most High. Nobody had to even really teach me that. That was something that I just knew. I don't know whether I seen it or whatnot, but it's something I had from a young understanding. I told you guys sometimes that I even prayed for my wife at the age of 10. The way and the Father delivered that prayer. 20 years later, but nonetheless, He delivered that prayer. But I'm just saying that prayer was prayer and understanding the Most High was something that we had most of us had from a young age. But what happens? You start to get older. Life starts, the distractions of life start to weigh us in. The challenges of life, dealing with peer pressure from our teens and whatnot. So I know for me it was like, okay, let me go to school, get the best grades, make my parents proud, play basketball, sports and whatnot. But in my peers, dealing with my peers and my upbringing, it was like, that was good enough. You need to have girls. So now we're dealing with the peer pressures of, you got to date, and you got to have a girlfriend, and you got to have, but yet you're trying to just keep innocent and pure. But then, you're dealing with it where, your friends are, what's going on? We're not, hey, you can't be wrong, man, when you have a girl. And then, to the point where, you're feeling that peer pressure now, you're saying, I have a girl. And you make up names and, I think I told you guys that story, right? Call the girl Janga, I said Janga, the girl named Janga. So, 2 years. For 2 years, my boys were like, you take a block from the middle when you put it on top. Right? But eventually, we eventually try to live up to these standards. So now I gotta get a girl. Now I gotta dress a certain way. Now I gotta, but by doing that, eventually we start to open up these doors. And we allow Satan now to come in, to start working. And, from being that innocent child now, to now slowly allowing these spirits and these spirits to have a footing, to start working in us, right? And then eventually it just starts to go even more, it continues as we get older. And then now we're coming to the truth, riddled with spirits, riddled with, past experience and all these things. And now we're trying to gain back that purity. And it's a fight, and it's a challenge. And the spirit is constantly wrestling with the flesh. Let's get 1 John chapter 2, and let's get 15 to 17.
Yeah. 1 John chapter 2, verse 15. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eye, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of the Most High abideth forever.
All right, so eventually over time we develop a love for evil, and then private destruction comes upon our lives. We fall short of the love for the Father
because there's a conflict in our flesh to still desire evil. That conflict leaves the door open for potential spirits to come in and wreak havoc. Through keeping the Father's commandment, that door is closed, right? So, eventually over time, right, starting off from being an innocent vessel, now dealing with prayer pressures of society, friends, etc., we eventually develop a love for evil, right? And, you know, in some cases it starts off so innocent because we're just really following the course of this world. So for some people, it's, you know, the traditions, and find out later on that a lot of these traditions are very satanic, right? For other people, and I'm more going to deal with the Israelite community on this topic, is that we embrace something that we call today the culture. And I love it, you know, and there's one thing I can't deny is that there's times in my life where, and there's times even now where there's a hate and love relationship, where this thing that we now call culture, I can see some of the beauty in it, meaning that we're very creative people. We are the salt of the earth, as the Bible says. But I look at what we call culture as the very thing that, and I'm going to read it, it says, we develop a love for evil, and then pride when destruction comes upon our lives. So this thing that we call culture, in a lot of cases, we've embraced it in a time in our life. We accepted it in a time of life. But what is this culture now? Where are we today with, I'm going to say, black people culture? Because in a lot of cases, it's spreading the message of destruction. And is that fair to say? Give me a song right now that ain't talking about destruction right now. Very few. But in the culture, and it's the hip hop, it's the reggae, right? And even though a lot of us, we grew up on these things, we love these things. But a lot of it, in a lot of cases, especially, I say in a rap, Christian on the rap, a lot of the rap music is dealing with that. And the glorifying of it. Right? And a lot of the music is like, me and my demons are part. Believe it or not. If you listen to the lyrics or whatnot, me and my demons. And the younger generation, you guys know what I'm talking about. Me, my demons are out to get some ops. So where we went from being a people that used to say, yo, Father, God, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Gospel singers, and, you know, the culture was a reflection of the spirit we once had as a people. Now that culture now has become a tool used by the adversary to self-destruct. Right? So we would develop a love for evil, and then the pride when destruction happens. So we'll embrace the culture. Bop, bop, bop. You guys know all the things already. Right? But then, when our communities are riddled with violence, when we lose our loved ones to violence, that's when we see, that's when we have a problem with it. That's when this culture, this thing that we've embraced for so long, is a problem. And, you know, we have to identify that. Why? Because it's something that all of us at one point in our lives, we got pulled into. This thing called culture. But this next generation, the culture, where it's going, it's dead. And we see it. It's like a kid makes a post, rapping a song, well, I'm about to kill my ops. 2 weeks later, the guy's dead. And it's a continual cycle. Right? So that conflict, let me continue reading this. So we fall short of the love of the Father because there is a conflict in our flesh to still desire evil. So that conflict leaves the door for potential spirits to come in and wreak havoc. though keeping the Father's commandment closes that door, we understand that keeping the Most High's commandment allows us to have that edge. But we battle sometimes, right? We battle sometimes, you know. Turn on the radio, the culture is there. Turn on the TV, it's there. But it's having a firm grip and a firm understanding of, you know, the message that you're trying to portray, and that's death, and that's, you know, that's opposite of the message that Christ has given us to preach, right? Let's get Matthew chapter 19, though. Let's get 16 to 26.
Matthew chapter 19, verse 16. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do, that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. He said unto him, Which? Yeshua said, Thou shalt do no murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Honor thy father and thy mother. And thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The young man said unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. What lack I? Yeshua said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Then said Yeshua unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of the Most High. When his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, Who then can be saved? But Yeshua beheld them and said unto them, With men this is impossible, but with the Most High all things are possible.
Right? With the Most High all things are possible. So it is very difficult, it is a very difficult task to get into the kingdom of heaven. Our keeping of the Father's commandments and subduing our flesh will be the only way we will find mercy in the days of judgment. We must struggle at all costs to overcome our worldly desires, because the love of this present world blinds you from seeing the eternal one to come, which is far greater. Right? So, constantly we have to fight the flesh. And I know, we say that, we hear that, it's so like, we talk about that often and whatnot. But to serve the Most High, really and truly, it's a discipline. And I say it's a discipline, why? Because our bodies have been taught to operate against the Most High. Right? Because even though, some of us had that foundation, even though, we were doing the best we could with the understanding that we had, but we weren't following the Most High according to truth. Right? So many of us, when we came to the truth, it's a fresh start, it's a new beginning, new challenges. I'm learning things that I wasn't taught before. So it's a lot of undoing and redoing. But through all of that, it becomes, it's like we have to fight to bring our flesh into submission. Because by default, it's so easy to get up, go out throughout the whole week functioning without plugging into the Most High. If you don't have the diligence, if you don't have the diligence to say, hey, you know what? Getting up every morning, I'm having my quiet time every morning. I'm having my quiet time before I go to bed. I'm making sure I have my time with the Most High. If we're not careful of that, right? It can start off with a day, 2 days, a week, and then that consistency starts to lack. Where eventually all you have from week to week is the Shabbat. And this is why, starting off with brothers, we're trying to start a discipline routine. Like brothers, when we get up in the morning, we post the scriptures in the thing, that's part of that discipline. Getting up. Sometimes I'm getting up and saying, well, I have to get out of the house. I do my quiet time. I read or whatnot. And then I go to work. I'm stopping at work. I'm saying, no, I'm posting my scripture in the chat and whatnot because we're trying to instill that discipline amongst the brothers. But it's something we have to instill in all of us. Where if we don't start, working out, spiritually working out, so to speak, that to embed these things, eventually the flesh will go back to default. The flesh will take over or try to take over the spirit. So in these last days, this is an area where we have to now eventually focus on bringing the flesh into submission. Right? Let's get Matthew chapter 10. Let's get 27 to 31.
Right. Book of Matthew chapter 10, verse 27. What I tell you in darkness, that speak ye in light, and what ye hear in the ear, that preach ye upon the housetop. And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not two sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows.
Right? So our fear of what man thinks also gets us in trouble in the flesh. The standards of what society says is a real man or a woman often clouds our judgment. And the Bible soon becomes even less than an afterthought. The Father knows all things according to what we do, whether good or evil. Right? So a lot of times our fear of how society perceives us or how our friends perceive us plays a factor on our walk with the Most High. Right? The standard of society. Now, if we live by the standards of society, we're in problems. Especially today's society. Because, for instance, in order to be a man in by today's standards in today's society, what's needed?
Money.
Okay, money. What else?
Car.
Car, status. It's all about the image. Rather about the integrity and the heart of the man. It's more about the perception of the man. So with that comes a lot of vainness, a lot of, in order for people to sell that perception, a lot of treachery, stealing, lying. Right? And we see this with the social media and whatnot. Everybody's living I would say not everybody, but the majority of the people on social media are fake, living a lie. Portraying something that really is not. Right? And we talked about it, that everybody puts their best on social media, not their worst. So it can set a false narrative. That's just one aspect, right? But we see today's standards of what a man is and what a woman is has changed. What about a woman? What's the standards of a woman nowadays? I didn't say a good woman. Whatever. Right? So the standard of what is a woman, if you follow society, is that it's not biological. It's how you feel. Right? That's what they're saying in the video. Right? It's not biological what makes you a woman, but how you feel. And we can see that by that standard, crazy, right? So it's very important that we don't allow society's thoughts to weigh on how we conduct ourselves regarding the flesh, right? And I know it's challenging, but the reality is that these are, the tools of the adversary in order to pull us in the direction that he wants to go, rather than following the Most High, right? Because the Most High says, and read verse 29 to 31.
Matthew 10, verse 29. Are not two sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father? But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear ye not, therefore ye are of more value than many sparrows.
Right? So in the eyes of the Most High, you're more valuable. Right? The Most High, even with dealing with, the prayers of society and whatnot. Most High said, look at the lilies. Not even Solomon was arrayed like the way how I decorate the lilies. So the Most High can, keep us, I'm going to say, keep us looking good, keep us looking sharp, keep us, he can bless us with the things we need on this journey. But we have to make sure that, that spirit of covetousness, that spirit of vain, vanity, that those things don't weigh us down. Those things don't play a factor on the choices we make. Because a lot of people, for the vanity, for the spirit of coveting, they blur that line. I'm going to say, lose integrity when serving the Most High in order to get short glory. Right? Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 32, and let's get 9 to 18.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 9. For the Most High's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land, and in a waste howling wilderness. He led him about, he instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirred up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings. So the Most High alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the field. And he made him to suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock, butter of kine and milk of sheep, with fat of lambs, and rams of the bread of Bashan, and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of wheat. And thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. But Jeshurun waxed fat, and Kit, thou art waxing fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook the Most High, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to the Most High, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begot thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten the Most High that formed thee.
That has formed thee, right? So at one point, you were the strongest of the nations, and the power over the nations. And the powers over the nations, or the gods of the nations, fallen angels of the nations, knew that they had to get us away from the Father in order for them to receive more power. Religion was made commonplace, and lust was intertwined to appeal to our flesh. We turned our backs on the rock on which we used to stand, and trusted our fleshly desires as our own strength. Right? So when we look at it in terms of Israel, the Most High took us raised us on high, made us the heads of all nations, right? Remember during the time of Solomon, it said that gold was like sap. It was like nothing. But through the plentiness, we started to lose focus and faith to understand who these things were coming from, which is the Most High. So when we became fat, and the flesh had everything at its disposal, the more and more we started to drift away from the Most High. Right? The book of Sirach says, in a man's prosperity, he forgets about, what was it again? In his prosperity, he forgets about his poverty, and in his poverty, he forgets about the days of his prosperity. So sometimes when the Most High lifts us up, and we get comfortable, we get lax, and through that, we get a little sluggish with showing our appreciation. And eventually, the flesh starts to take more and more over, where eventually it's like we're more entertaining the flesh, feeding the flesh. But I'm telling you, anybody get up in the morning? Well, I would say some people get up in the morning and go have breakfast. But majority of everybody feeds their flesh, no? Huh? I say everybody pretty much feeds their flesh. But yet, some of us leave the spirit hungry. So every day we get up, we'll eat, we'll do all of that, but yet we'll leave the spirit uneasy and famine, right? So it's very important that, time when the Most High raises us up, that we remember those days when we were low. Because the flesh wants to get raised on high, wants to, indulge in the blessing that the Most High gives you. And if we're not careful, we will lose that gratitude and that gratefulness that we should have always for the Most High. Right? And I talked about this on Friday. I go, it's not like the Most High needs our blessing or our praises. The angels that are in heaven praise Him daily. So it's not that the Most High needs our praises. It's that we need His blessing. It's the other way around. We need Him. Right? And that's why we constantly have to, keep the flesh intact so that it doesn't pull us away from the Most High and that gratefulness that we should have day to day. Right? 1 Corinthians chapter 10, let's get 1 to 13.
First Corinthians chapter 10, verse number 1. Moreover, brethren, I would not have you ignorant, that you should be ignorant, how that all your fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink. For they drank of the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. But with many of them the Most High was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after all evil doings, as they also lusted. Neither be you.
Right? So let's stop there, right? So these should serve as an example. Now these things were our example, to the intent we should not lust, and they also lusted. So we know coming out of Egypt, right? Our forefathers being in the wilderness and whatnot. What was one of the things that kept on plaguing them from seeing what the Most High was doing? Unbelief. But even with that unbelief, right? What was it in most cases centered around? What was the majority of their complaints?
Your belly.
Huh? Majority of the complaints. Hungry.
Even the things of Egypt.
Well, most of their complaint was like, Moses, you bring us out here, you kill us out, no water, no food. And then even when the Most High sent them water and food, tired of this manna, you know. Tired, every day we're eating manna, tired of the manna. Eat some meat. Most High sent them some quail. When they were eating, boxing off the quail. Nobody else said, you know what I mean? Thank the Most High for the quail. Everybody just started collecting. Though there was no food. So everybody thinking about their own house and whatnot. Not giving thanks to the Father. But the point that I'm making is that the same flesh that we're talking about today was for a lot of them their downfall. What was the thing that stopped them from seeing the Most High work? Brother Kim?
Yeah, don't want to also lose sight that when they were complaining about food, they keep saying in Egypt, like they didn't want to leave that place. So that was also a part of it, not just their belly, but they're still bound to that place that was oppressing them.
I mean, kind, right? But I even go a little bit further. That they would have went back into captivity for the cucumber in them. You see what I'm saying? So then I said, boy, can't have the cucumber. Better go back to Egypt to serve. Now when we say that, logically it makes no sense. It literally makes no sense. But that's sometimes the pull of the flesh. Where the pull of the flesh will cause us to do things where in a rational state of mind, we wouldn't do it. But because the flesh has so much pull on us, it causes us to do irrational things. Right? You ever see somebody, I mean, you put someone in a position to save their soul, to save their life, their life, the flesh. They'll do anything, in most cases. Right? And that's natural human response. I'm not saying not to do it to save your soul. I'm not saying that. But I'm just trying to say that in a lot of cases, this flesh thing, has a control on us. Right? And if we're not mindful of it, eventually it will pull us somewhere. It will pull us into, and it can be our demise. Right? Now, does anybody like consciously, you talk to yourself in your head and say, okay, flesh, no, we're not going to do it. Because if you're not conscious of the flesh like that, then you may want to start there to say, okay, what's what I want, and what is the flesh pulling me to it? And being able to separate the soul from the flesh. And just examine. And then you'll start to say, okay, you know what? This is the flesh. No flesh, we're not doing this today. No flesh. You're not disciplined right now. Right? But we eventually have to get to that point where we're in control. And not the flesh with the spirit that's feeding off the flesh in the driver's seat. Right? Let's continue on.
Verse 6. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, that the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happened unto them for examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that thinketh he stand and take heed, lest he fall. There had no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But the Most High is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it.
Right? So the Father sent Christ our rock to deliver us in Egypt. And when we became prosperous, we forgot him and followed other sources of wisdom. The wisdom of the serpent took over our land, and it still destroys us until this very day. There are very diverse traps left by the devil, but if we would just take a second to open our eyes, we would see that with every trap, there was a second of clarity that came to us from the Father where we could have avoided the trap. Right? So, in every scenario, in every time where the flesh is pulling and whatnot, the Most High will allow there to be something to, a door of escape. For some of us, is being able to identify that door. For some of us, it's a matter of, do we really want to go through the door to escape the temptation? Because for some of us, even though we know the reality of sin, which we know the judgment that awaits for those if we don't reach the mark that Christ has left for us. But for some, let me say it again. So some of us, we understand the punishment and judgment if we don't meet the mark that Christ has left for us. Okay? But some of us, we've been dealing with certain aspects of the flesh for so long that even though we understand we have to separate ourselves from it, we've learned to embrace it, to enjoy it, to the point where now even we're fighting to separate ourselves, we call it back. Even when, Christ opens up that door and we see the door, and let me just stay a little longer. And we play around. And, that's something we have to be real with ourselves to say, okay, you know what? I got to fight against them. I have to overcome them. Because many of us, we've been fighting for a long time, and, we've been playing that game where it's like, you see the door, it feels good, and I'll try the next time. And it never happens, right? We continually playing that prison game where we're out of prison, we're back into the prison. We're free, and we put ourselves back into the chains of bondage through the flesh, right? We got Testament of Judah, Gocc, chapter 14, let's go 1 to 3.
Right, Testament of Judah, chapter 14, verse 1. And now, my children, I say unto you, be not drunk with wine, for wine turneth the mind away from the truth, and inspires the passion of lust, and leadeth the eyes into error. For the spirit of fornication hath wine as a minister, to give pleasure to the mind. For these two also take away the mind of man. For if a man drink wine to drunkenness, it disturbeth the mind with filthy thoughts leading to fornication, and heateth the body to carnal union. And if the occasion of the lust be present, he worketh the sin, and is not ashamed.
Continue.
He that committeth fornication is not aware when he suffers loss, and is not ashamed when he is put to dishonor. For even though a man be a king and commit fornication, he is stripped of his kingship. Go back to that screen. He is stripped of his kingship by becoming the slave of fornication, as I myself also suffered. For I gave my staff, that is, the staff of my tribe, and my girdle, that is, my power, and my diadem, that is, the glory of my kingdom.
Right? So our lack of sobriety clouds our minds, and we fall into trap after trap with the adversary. Later on, before the actual action of sin was committed. we grow accustomed to ignoring the voice in our conscience that keeps us from being taken down and hear another voice which ultimately we follow to our own shame, right? So when we look at when we look at the case of Judah, Judah's talking about how he ended up sleeping with Tamar. Now, Tamar was his son's wife. So it was unlawful for him to sleep with her, basically, right? Now, he's saying that, even though, she covered her face and whatnot, he was saying that through the flesh, him drinking and whatnot, and the desire and the pull of the flesh, that he didn't even care that he was going out to the street, finding a concubine, gave her the signature of his kingdom, right? All that didn't matter. All that mattered was to feed the flesh. And in so many cases, we can see that where brothers, to feed the flesh will jeopardize family, will jeopardize the home, will jeopardize, the future and the effect it will have on the children. All to satisfy the flesh. Right? In other cases, sisters we can relate to. But in so many cases, when the flesh has that much pull, all that matters is to get it fed. And the consequences, or whoever has to feel the consequences on the in order for the flesh to get fed, is, I'm going to say, a countermeasure. I'd use that word, right? Secondary thought. All that matters is me. And it really shows the selfishness of the flesh, and when the flesh is controlled, it ain't thinking about nobody else. I told y'all there's times where it's like, alright guys, you have people at your house, right? You want to do your own thing? I'm tired, guys. A man came to visit you, it's only been an hour, and you're already kicking them out of your house. Because all that matters is the flesh. So our lack of sobriety, right? You want to make sure that, because the spirit of drunkenness, right? Drunkenness, and understanding, I'm going to say in all cases, understanding our weakness, right? So, for Judah, it was like drunkenness, that allowed his spirit, his mind to get, I'm going to say his judgment to get clouded. And I share the story of, I shared with the brothers, the spirit brothers, I won't go into that story, but that's that story of drunkenness. How if you're not careful, if you're not mindful, there's nothing wrong to have a drink. Right? But if that's your weakness, then stay away from it. And if that causes your brother to stumble, hey, you need to stay away from your brother to stumble. We gotta be mindful of that, cautious of that, right? But I can sit here and testify and say, I know what it is. I know how it feels like to be hijacked. Have your flesh hijacked by a spirit through drunkenness. Right? And I told a few people I went out, because a lot of times when we do anything excessively, whether it can be food excessively, it can be drinking excessively, it leaves a door open for now these deities now to come in and enjoy the pressures off of these flesh. Now the thing is, how do you satisfy something that has no stomach? You can't. Right? So that demon will get you and enjoy the ride as long as you can, right? But let me continue. Let's get James chapter 1 and let's get 12 to 18. Yeah.
Right. Look at James chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the man that endures temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of the Most High. For the Most High cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man. But every man, Slakia, is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then, when lust hath...
Read that again, but every man is tempted what?
But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed.
Right? So usually temptation just starts off in the mind. Right? Through the lust of the flesh, the eyes and whatnot. So we'll see something, it entices the mind. Eventually, the flesh convinces the mind that, we need to fulfill it, we need to obtain it, we need to get it. But usually it starts off with enticing. And that's why, social media, TV, all these things are, Satan's primary tool. Because, how does that happen? You just scrolling on the wall, Facebook. Yeah, I'm on Facebook there. All I really use. I really use that, but the only thing I still say, but nonetheless, you're scrolling down that, someone poses a picture up. You can't control that. Right? And if you're not careful, you're looking at the picture, or you're looking at, right? Instagram, same thing. Snapchat, same thing. Right? But all these different things, they're tools used to entice you, to invoke thought, opinions, get you to fall, with the trends of where the world's going in some cases. So if you're not careful of that, then you will follow the area. You will be enticed through the eyes, which will eventually lead the flesh, the body, to participate. Right? Go on.
Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures.
Right, so the Father is perfect, and his ways are perfect. It is by our own will that we sin, and it's by our own will that we will stop our wicked goings. The world has mostly temptation to offer, but if you seek eternal life, learn to overcome consistently those things which tempt you daily, then you can win this battle, right? Let's get 2 Esdras chapter 3, verse 18, verse 22.
Right, book of 2 Esdras, chapter 3, verse number 8 and number 22. And every people walked after their own will, and did wonderful things before thee, and despised thy commandments. And again, in the process of time, thou broughtest the flood up on those that dwelt.
Where are you right now?
Verse 9.
2 Esdras, verse 18.
Slock it. 18 to 22. All right, verse 18. In bowing the heavens, thou didst set fast the earth, movest the whole world, and madest the depths to tremble, and troublest the men of that age. And thy glory went through 4 gates of fire, and of the earthquake, and of wind, and of cold, that thou mightest give the law unto the seed of Jacob, and diligence unto the generations of Israel. And yet tookest thou not away from them a wicked heart, that thy law might bring forth fruit in them. For the first Adam bearing a wicked heart transgressed, and was overcome, so we all they that are born of him. Thus infirmity was made permanent, and the law also in the heart of people with the malignity of the root, so that the good departed away and the evil abode still.
All right, so through Adam's fall, a deep-rooted desire to sin has passed from generation to generation. In the midst of confusion, the Father still offered mercy and has given us the keys to obtain that eternal life, which would have been there for Adam if he had not given into temptation. Right? So, we know through Adam and the fall of Adam came sin. And even though Adam sinned, one sin, that sting of sin multiplied and became, in so many cases, so it has so many different heads. Right? But through Christ, the Most High has given us the opportunity, same way how from Adam, one sin became many, from one righteous act that Christ committed, is given the opportunity for many to have the chance of righteousness, then to move on to perfection. So, what Christ did, just long story short, what Christ did, he's given us the opportunity he's given the opportunity to undo the ripple effect that came from Adam. So from Adam, when Adam fell, that seed of immunity was sown in all the children that came from Adam. Christ gives us the ability now to address that manipulative root and eventually rid ourselves completely of it. Right? Or to fight and stand firm against it. Right? Let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 15, let's get 42, 49.
Right. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 42. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption. It is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit, that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and afterward that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy, and as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly.
Right, read that again.
As is the earthy, such are they also
that are still plugged into the earth, or plugged into the world, and want to operate earthly. That's pretty much all they have, is the course of this world. That's how they will continue to operate. But those that are desiring for that spiritual connection with the Most High, read.
And as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly.
Right? So those that have their hearts and their minds set on the heavenly stuff, on the heavenly promise, on the things that the Most High will bring, their mindset is set upon those things, looking for the new heaven, the new earth, right? Looking for Christ's reign. But for those that are still plugged into the world, this is all they have to hope for. They don't see anything besides this, and as a result, that even though they see it falling, they're still clinging on. They're still trying to chase whatever they can get. Right? Go on.
And as we have borne the image of the earthly, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly.
All right. So if we desire to follow the course of this earth in its carnality, then we will not be found worthy to inherit the spiritual bodies which are incorruptible. Are we not tired of these bodies and the way they get old and suffer sickness? Right? So the question, you're not tired? Then you guys don't want your new body yet? I'm with you on that, sis. Right? Let's get Hebrews chapter 4, let's get 12 to 16.
Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. For the word of the Most High is quick and powerful, and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of the soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. Neither is there any creature that is not manifest in his sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. Seeing then that we have a great high priest that is passed into the heavens, Yeshua, the son of Ahiah, let us hold fast our professions. For we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need.
All right. So Yeshua went before the throne for us after going through the same wicked world, right? So Christ went through the same thing for us. Dealt with the same challenges of the flesh, burdens of the flesh, temptations of the flesh, and yet was able to overcome it, leaving us as an example, right? Now, many churches don't highlight this. Usually what do they say pertaining Christ and us walking in perfection? Normally, what's the slogan that we hear? Nobody's perfect, right? We're not Christ. So in some cases we'll say that, churches will say that, but then at the same breath they'll say he is the one of our faith. He's the author of our faith. Right? The author and the perfecter of our faith. So on one hand they'll say, okay, he's the mark, but then on the other voice they say we can't beat the mark. And that's the excuse that the Bible doesn't give us. Christ had to come in the same sinful flesh that we walked in, that we're walking in, and still overcome, leaving us without an excuse. So I say that why? Because the adversary will put thoughts in our head to say, you know what? It's impossible to reach that mark. And that's what the adversary wants you to believe. Bertrand? Exactly. But that's what they taught. They taught that's the doctrine that many other churches taught. So therefore, it's like we're, trying to walk in his shoes, don't even bother. Because we didn't come from that divinity that he came from. But really and truly, Satan has used that as an excuse to keep us stagnant, rather than from reaching that mark. The Bible talks about reaching that mark. And this is not, it's not a race. It's a marathon. Paul talks about, not running in vain. So the adversary will allow us to believe that in order to keep us stagnant. Right? So we're really truly without an excuse. But going back to what we read is where with man, where things may seem possible, we know the Most High what? All things are possible. So it is possible to subdue this flesh. It is possible to have full control over it like Christ did. Now does that mean you won't have weak points and trying times and no, that's not what it's saying. But it's being able to, when we're going through those trying times when the flesh is getting weak, through the wisdom and the word of the Most High, that we're able to strengthen back the spirit, to pull the spirit back up, to take back charge over the flesh. So example is that when Christ was about to be crucified, he went into the garden, and what did he do in the garden? He prayed. Right? He didn't pray just once, he didn't pray out 3 times. To the point where blood was coming out of his eyes. And I say, why? That was a deep prayer. But what did the Most High do? The Most High sent angels down to strengthen him. And it wasn't the flesh, it was the spirit that needed to be strengthened, because the spirit was weak. So in times like that, it's very important that we go back to our resources. Prayer, fasted. Right? Because those are the tools, our weapons are not carnal. Those are the tools the Most High has given us to subdue the flesh. So sometimes when the flesh is puffing up itself, saying, all right, what, flesh? I'm not disciplined people. Because it's either two people, only one could leave. So when the flesh is trying to rise up and whatnot, no. We gotta put it back in submission, get it back in check. Flesh, go back in your cage. Spirit's lead. But it's something you have to fight. You have to fight for. In a world filled with darkness, you have to fight to let your light shine. You have to, and even some of us have reading as well. We have to operate to some degree, and some people say, well, we need by this degree. And I say you have to operate like the sun. And I use this comparison before. But think about it. The sun shines all day, huh? Sees everything under the sun, huh? And we know under the sun, it's not all good under the sun. But yet the sun is unfazed by all the madness, all the darkness under the sun. So he can continue shining, going through the whole world and its confusion, and still perform its tasks unaffected. In a lot of cases, right? Because the Bible says we are the light. But what is the light if a man puts the light under his bed? It's no use. It's not good to anybody. So we have to be able to allow the Spirit to shine and not allow everything this world has, the darkness of this world, to take the Spirit in order for the flesh now to come out and shine. Because that's what the adversary is trying to do. He's trying to quench that spirit that the Most High has given us. That spirit of hope. That spirit of faith. That spirit of belief. With faith, safety, right? But he's trying to quench that spirit. So we have to find a way that regardless of what's going on around us, think about it, Lot was able to do it. Lot was out living in Sodom and Gomorrah. And yet it grieved the Spirit every day. The Bible says it grieved the Spirit every day. Operating in Sodom and Gomorrah, he was still able to keep that heart, to keep that integrity. Right? But some of us, we go to work, and we become a different person at work. Why? Because work, the headaches at work, because miserable, frustrated, you know what I mean? Like, many of us will go around our old friends. And rather than us shining, our light dimmers, and we become, in some cases, just as dark as them. Through the conversations, with, the mindset, and that's because, we don't want to be that guy that speaks righteousness. So therefore, those that are operating the flesh were able to silence the spirit. Or silent the person who's supposed to be operating and living in the spirit. We cannot allow these things to happen. Right? Let's continue though. Let's get to second Sirach.
Sirach, chapter 21, verse 1. Going down to verse 7. Alright, it says, my son, hast thou sinned? Do so no more, but ask pardon for thy former sins. Flee from sin as from the face of a serpent. For if thou comest too near it, it will bite thee. The teeth thereof are as the teeth of a lion. All iniquity is as a two-edged sword. The wounds whereof cannot be healed. To terrify it and do wrong will waste riches, Thus the house of proud men shall be made desolate. A prayer out of a poor man's mouth reaches to the ears of the Most High, and his judgment cometh speedily. He that hateth to be reproved is in the way of sinners, but he that feareth the Most High will repent from his heart. An eloquent man is known far and near, but a man of understanding knoweth when he sitteth.
Alright, so sin is also like a two-edged sword, which can leave a serious wound in the spirit that you may not recover from. The wise can recognize when they are slipping from the path and apply the advice of the scriptures wisely to recover, but the foolish will continue in the foolishness. Right? So it's very important that, and we talked, I just touched on this recently. It's very important that once we start to see our integrity, taking a hit, that we pull ourselves back out of that slump and start to say, okay, you know what? Discipline. Right? Start utilizing some tools. You gotta set an alarm clock. My wife, she sets her alarm clock. And, morning prayer. It's 3 o'clock prayer. You know what I mean? So she's diligent and has used those things to help her in her discipline to make sure that she doesn't go day to day, without touching base or linking in with the Most High, so to speak. Right? So it's very important that we catch ourselves. So we all, like I said, in this society, in this world, it's so easy to be pulled away from the Most High. There's so many distractions. We go to work, by default, all of us have to go to work, plug into the system, contribute as much to Satan's society, and then after we're done contributing for the 8 hours, we're tired, we come home, sisters, whoever, depending on how we run the house, someone I have cooked food, only to prepare and do it again. And I said, if you're not conscious, if you're not disciplined, if you're not mindful of these things, it can turn into days, weeks, months, and then eventually you're fully pulled away. Let's get James chapter 4:4. Right? We're actually pulled away from our lifeline, which is the Most High.
James chapter 4, verse 4. Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with the Most High? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of the Most High. Do you think that the scripture said in vain, the spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? But he giveth more grace, wherefore he said, the Most High resisteth the proud, but giveth grace to the humble. Submit yourself therefore to the Most High. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to the Most High, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded.
Right? So we must fight against the devil so that the demons back off of us, and we can recover. Humble yourself before the Father and trust His word on how to overcome spirits, and you will be able to free yourselves. And that's what this is about, right? Truly being free. So even though the truth, the Most High has given us, everybody here who's received the truth, the Most High has given us the truth to set us free. And not only us, but also others, to set them free from their prison, right? Read this again. We must fight against the devil so that the demons back off of us and we recover. Humble yourself before the Father and trust His word on how to overcome spirits, and you will be able to free yourselves, right? And that's the whole goal, is that we want to free ourselves from this world and from the forces, spirits, and whatnot that, in a lot of cases, that have been leading us, right? That have been directed us, that have been attached to us, right? Some of us, and I always touch about it, some of us with these spirits, we've been wrestling these spirits for years. Some of these spirits are generational spirits, where it didn't even start with us. Parents were dealing with this, and then it got passed on to us. But it's time for us to stop being the victims and learn to be the victors. Because we have to reach a point where, just like Paul and them, you know what I mean? Like, just like when you read Paul and the apostle and whatnot, when they were going around places where demons were, what were the demons them doing? Fleeing. Because the Most High, once we get ourselves free, once we're able to get our spirit in obedience, then we can tear down everything else that exalts itself against the Most High. But that only happens when we can fully accomplish to overcome this flesh and get it into submission with the Most High. That's the only way we're going to get into the next phase of this, where we can now rid ourselves of the demon, but also rid others of demons. Because we've been given that authority and that job to do. And we're headed in a time where, man, a lot of people are going to be riddled with these spirits. Right? And in some cases, we're already seeing it. But when it's all said and done, where we see where this campaign is going, where they can now, through technology, through frequency, hijack people and control people, a lot of people are going to need us to free them from that bondage. Right? I see someone out there. No? Okay. Let's get Romans though, chapter 7. Let's get 21 and 25. Yeah.
All right, book of Romans, chapter 7, verse 21. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of the Most High after the inward man.
Right? So this is where a lot of us are right now. Go on.
But I see another law in my members, warned against the law of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank the Most High through Yeshua, the anointed our Lord. So then, with the mind I myself serve the law of the Most High, but with the flesh the law of sin.
Right? So Paul saw this by the way. So he would admit, right, for he delights in the law. All of us, we delight in the law. We understand that what the Most High, the law that the Most High said, it's perfect. We understand that. Our soul understands that. But yet, we have that other side of us, which is the flesh. And the flesh has desires, it has expectations, it has all these things. And that is warned against the spirit that's telling me to trust in the Most High, that the Most High has good things to wait for me. But the flesh is like, I want them now. And there's a constant wrestle to where his mind is saying, hey, I want to do the things that are pleasing to God. But his flesh is causing him to be contrary. And a lot of us, we go through this tug of war where we're like, I want to do the will of the Most High. I understand this is the choice that I made. This is the choice that I want to accept and live. But the flesh now is warring against our mind, warring against our body, only to bring us back into subjection, back into prison. And so with the mind we serve the Most High, but with the flesh, it's not alive. And Paul's like, who's going to save us from this old wretched man? It's really only the Most High. And being, asking him, having that continual relationship, so to speak. And this is why the adversary is trying to get us away from that. But having that continual connection with Him, being in His Word, having our prayer time, where the Most High will give us the tools and the resources and the strength to overcome these battles that we're facing. Right? For many of us, the adversary told us that we can do it by ourselves. Right? And, many of us before baptism, we thought, hey, once I get perfect, then I'm going to get baptized. Because we thought we could do this by ourselves. We thought we had the strength within ourselves to do this. We have the strength to make the choice. And we have the understanding, the knowledge, the Most High has given us the knowledge of the tools we can use to win this battle. But without staying tapped into that life source, eventually we will all run dry. And the flesh will take over. So this is important where we have to build that discipline, getting up, making sure we have our prayer time, making sure we have our quiet time, making sure these things, because the world is trying to make it where you ain't got time for that. You get up, work, come home, do it again. So we have to make the time for it. We have to prioritize these things, right? Go on though, we're in Romans. Let's get Romans chapter 7. Romans? Sorry, let me read this again. So even Paul admits that like flesh, but he continues his course and walks righteously through the earth to proclaim the gospel. This fight is not exclusive to one individual, so the common excuse that many use to continue in sin, such as, you don't understand, this is different, any foolishness, this is different, our foolishness, and shows a serious lack of spiritual awareness of the world outside of their own situation. Right? So, in a lot of cases, we can be living a delusion. Right? Where the things that we're dealing with, eventually over time, we start to justify them, and, they're not as bad. There's people that's worse than me. Right? Because eventually what happens when we tolerate stuff over and over again, in some cases we form a way of accepting it. Right? And the example that I use, I'll look at this whole LGBTQ movement. 20 years ago, you can't see this thing, you wouldn't be able to see these things on TV like how it is today. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
But eventually, they do a award show, have two girls on stage kissing. Oh, it's not that bad. Then, they slip in a RuPaul. Oh, okay, it's getting bad. Then they, do a little parade. And you're like, it's not bothering me. And then after you realize you're doing a parade everywhere, then you realize, okay, now this is becoming a problem. But eventually, as I said, is that we can ignore these things, but eventually over time, by ignoring them, we really start to begin to accept them. So it's like if we don't get the flesh into submission and set standards and work on those standards and those disciplines, eventually you'll accept the very things that you know you need to work on, and you'll downplay them. Let's continue though. 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High, to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of the Most High, and bringing into captivity every thought.
And bringing into captivity every what?
Every thought to the obedience of Christ, and having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience whenever your obedience is fulfilled.
Right? So we even have to have the ability to bring our thoughts into submission. Right? Because how the adversary works, as I said, the lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, we can't control those things. We can't control what we see in a dark world. We can control it to some degree, but I'm saying to say, hey, you know what, we ain't gonna see nothing, that would be a false narrative. Because the way this course is going is like everybody is ignorantly serving Satan, whether they know it or not. So it's being able to bring every thought, first time with our own thoughts, into submission and align it towards the Most High. Right? Because we know how it works. Usually sin, we're pulled away when we're enticed. Are we enticed? We're enticed through our thoughts. So once, there's times where when our thoughts entice us to do something contrary towards the Most High, or to fulfill the needs of the flesh, it's by us being able to cast down our thoughts, to bring our thoughts back into subjection, where we can now, put that desire, cast it down, so to speak. And that's, something we have to learn to develop. Constantly casting away our thoughts, dealing with our thoughts. But I tell you what, the adversary is easy to give suggestions. And if he ain't giving you suggestions, he's sending a friend your way to give you the wrong suggestion. Right? Your friends are there probably still plugging the Eliphaz and the Bill, what was that name? Bill Hop. Pretty sure everyone has one of them in their crowd. And everybody's going to send them and say, hey, you know what? Today we're going to party and feed the flesh. Right? And they're probably not saying that, but you guys know what I'm trying to say, right? So, we got to be able to cast down and control our thoughts. Let's get Colossians chapter 3, let's get 1 to 10.
Colossians chapter 3, verse 1. If ye then, being risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of the Most High. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in the Most High. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Mortify therefore your members, which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. For which things sake the wrath of the Most High cometh on the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them.
Right? So once we're casting down our thoughts and we're able to, control our thoughts, and even the thoughts that we can't control, we can bring them into subjection. Once we can do that, then we can move to the next phase and read that again.
In the which ye also walked.
No, verse 5.
Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth.
Right? So once we deal with the controlling of our thoughts, then that can translate or transition over to the mortifying of our members. So no longer am I going to use these members to work sin on this earth. Right? So how's it look? Okay, let me start off with my mouth, because I know my mouth will put me in problems. My mouth will put me in problems. Right? So here we go. This is how we're going to talk. This is the type of argument, conversations I'm going to entangle myself with. Because I know that certain conversations help, sometimes I can slip and I can defile my temple by what comes out of my mouth. So, you know what I said? It starts with our thoughts, and then now we're controlling our members and using these members that we once used to sin or to do the works of the adversary, we're now using them to do the works of the Most High. So here you go. You know what? When I talk to the brothers then, or even when I talk to the brother that's against me, I'm going to get my thoughts in line. And the Bible tells me, you know what? Kind words multiply friends. Alright, let me start off with some kind words. And, you know what I mean? So if you deal with the thoughts, and you're bringing our members into subjection. Right? So many other examples I can think of, but the whole idea is that whatever weak point that we have, first dealing with it in our minds, learning to be able to overcome that, to control that, and then now allowing that to transition to the flesh, right? Because as I said, it starts off, usually our sin starts off in the mind, and then eventually plays itself out in the flesh. So we have to use that same concept now and switch to say, okay, you know what, let me cast down the imagination of what's going on in my mind, and then once I've done that, let that transition towards the flesh. Right? But that also plays a factor of the things we're feeding the mind and feeding the spirit as well. Right? Because those are the very things that we will be relying on. Right? Those are the very things, like for instance, my mind says, hey, you know what? Go ahead and do this. It's the spirit and the things that I read that says, well, thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not do this. Right? So it's being able to cast out our thoughts with the word of the Most High and the things that we're reading about. Right? But sorry, go on.
Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry, for which things sake the wrath of the Most High comes on the children of disobedience, in the which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them. But now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Lie not one to another, seeing that ye have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him.
All right, so with knowledge of the Father's commandments comes a newfound awareness and image which you now represent. Satan also has knowledge in which he is looking for those who can represent his image, right? And that's the reality, that majority, those that are still plugged into this world, are representing his image. We've been chosen and picked by Christ to represent the Most High's image. We continue. We must treat the old urges in our flesh as if they are dead and ignore them, because giving into them makes us complicit in the image of the beast, being made stronger in society. Let's get Jeremiah chapter 4, 14 to 22.
Book of Jeremiah, chapter 4, verse number 14. O Jerusalem, wash thine heart from wickedness, that thou mayest be saved. How long shall thy vain thoughts lodge within thee? For a voice declared from Dan, and published affliction from Mount Ephraim. Make ye mention to the nations, behold, published against Jerusalem, that watchers come from a far country and give out their voice.
Go ahead. Yeah, 14. 16. Go on.
Give out their voice against the cities of Judah, as keepers of a field, or they are against her round about, because she hath been rebellious against me, said the Most High. Thy way and thy doing have procured these things unto thee. This is thy wickedness, because it is bitter, because it reacheth into thine heart. My bowels, I am pained at my very heart. My heart maketh a noise in me. I cannot hold my peace, because thou hast heard, O my soul, the sound of the trump, the alarm of war. Destruction upon destruction is cried, for the whole land is spoiled. Suddenly are my tents spoiled, and my curtains in a moment. How long shall I see the standard and hear the sound of the trumpet? For my people is foolish. They have not known me. They are sottish children, and they have none understanding. They are wise to do evil, but to do good they have no knowledge.
They are what?
They are sottish children.
So they are wise to do what?
They are wise to do evil, but to do good they have no knowledge.
Right? And it's true that we lack knowledge on how to do well. The Bible is there to teach us the standard on how to do good, so that there is an equal understanding given that applies to all. The Father called us foolish children because even with all the attempts at the Most High reaching down to deliver us, we rejected the weaker gods, which will fall. Let's get Proverbs chapter 1, and let's get 20 to 28.
Proverbs chapter 1, verse 20. Wisdom cried without. She uttered her voice in the streets. She cried in the chief place of concourse, in the opening of the gate, in the city of the uttered. In the city she uttered her words, saying, How long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and the fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. Because I have called, and ye have refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer.
Right? Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. Go on.
They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me.
They shall seek me early, but not find me. Right? So the Father is calling us out, as he did to our forefathers. The sovereign madness we have grown accustomed to. His word is here at the end of time, and it has stood the test of time to deliver us from our perils. Choose righteousness and walk in his image, so that Satan flees from you as he did Yeshua in the wilderness. That being said, Shalom, Father. When we look at Proverbs here as the last scripture here, and you know, this is the time that we're in, where wisdom, you know, during this time of awakening, where wisdom is pouring out. Understanding is here, right? Even when we look at the book of Daniel, Daniel said, Most High said to Daniel, close the book, right? For at the end, things shall be revealed. But to some degree, there's so much distraction that people, in a lot of cases, some people already feel they're saved, or they just stop looking. But in these last days, Most High, once again, allowing the spirit of wisdom to pour out. And those that take heed and overcome the flesh will eat the good of the land. And those that don't hearken to overcome the flesh, it will be those that when the destruction comes, then they will be crying out. But wisdom says by then she's not hearing you. She will mock at your destruction, because you forsook the wisdom that the Most High was giving you during this time of grace. So while we still have this time of grace, even though it's running out, let's work with a purpose. Let's work to get this flesh in submission. Let's work to get this spirit on a whole new level. And we'll reach the time where this will truly matter. So with that being said, family, Shabbat Shalom. Right? Let's open up the floor for a second. Anybody got any questions, statements? Right there?
Yeah, you use the example of the Israelites coming out and they murmured about food complaints.
Yeah.
So I'm just reflecting, and I know that every time.
Well, my main focus there, just make sure I'm clear. My main focus there, Phil, was just to show that if we don't get this flesh into submission, eventually, even for the little things like food, we'll sell ourselves into captivity. Right? So go on.
Yeah, yeah, that should have been how you just said it.
No. It depends on how you cook it.
That's not what I heard you now. But
Yeah.
when I hear, it sounded like it was the food that caught them. But I'm just reflecting every time they ask for something,
Yeah.
the Most High give it to them because He knows that we need it, right?
Yeah.
And in Corinthians, it is written clear that after they eat, they get up and play, and that led into idol worshiping. And I'm just reflecting here, when people are happy and excited, they go to dance and they're dancing to a lot of subliminal stuff that's devil worshiping and they don't even know. So I can see that here, there was also fornication, they tempted Christ, right? And they murmured. So all these things led to their
So
destruction.
let me ask you a question now, right?
Yeah.
How did they tempt Christ? Because I looked at that, like when you look at that, one of the studies we do where we go back to that same account, I think it's in Numbers chapter 21. When you get a chance to read it, but how did they tempt Christ? I don't know if you read that part.
So you give me bread, can you give me chicken too? You get what I'm saying? So it's not the food that they were asking for, but it was the spirit behind how they were going about doing their things. Right? And I also looked at when when Christ was also teaching, I think that is in John 6:26 to 27. He said, all these people, you're not here because of what I'm telling you, you're here because of the food. But nonetheless, he said, feed them, and he fed them, So
people have to eat.
People have to eat it.
All right. So the argument is not food.
No.
Because even the Most High gave them what they wanted, what they needed.
Exactly.
But the problem is that sometimes through the desire of food, going back to the flesh, people will do anything. You see what I'm saying? So the point is like this, right? You have a man that's hungry, right? Some man in their hungry state, they'll steal to fill that hunger, right?
Right.
So his desire of the flesh to fulfill that need is causing him to do something where in Iraq, if he wasn't in that state, he wouldn't do it to fill that need. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we cannot allow the pull of the flesh, even though we need food, we can't allow that pull to make us sin, to make us compromise, to make us forget what the Most High is doing.
Right.
So, in the end of the day, that's the focus there.
Right.
Right? So, that's the part where we have to be careful of, because it's not only just food. Some people is like, you know what, because of the peer pressures of society, I have to have the best clothing. And in order to get the best clothing, you know what? I gotta cheat, I gotta steal, I have to murder, I have to rob. Some people, that's a reality for some people. And if you're not strong enough or mindful of that, then these things will pull on you, especially in this day and age. The pull is real. And a lot of kids are not even kids, grown people. I mean, think about it. You have some people that kill their own family, their own parents, for money.
Look at our communities, man.
I mean, our community right now, vanity is running rampant. So without being able to control our mind, control our thoughts, it's so easy to just be pulled to and fro. And I'm saying is that, the younger generation is going through this right now, because in their time, this is what it is right now. How the flesh looks, what you eat it. You see what I'm saying? It's all imagery and vanity, and the next generation is looking at them and saying, hey, that, it's pulling them. So if we don't understand, it's pulling us grown people. Us grown people are dealing with that challenge at times, where we have to pull ourselves and say, no, I'm waiting for the Most High. I don't want nothing unless it's coming from the Most High. You see what I'm saying? So it's the reality of what we got to deal with day to day to day. And the thing is that Satan, is doing everything to, make this image, even though it's fallen, make it look good still. And you know what? Cities may be falling apart and whatnot, but you know what? We got a new universe for you. We got the metaverse. Where in the metaverse, you know what? You can have the best scenery. You can decide your celebrities. You can have so they're already selling the next new thing, the next new image to fool the masses. So if you're not careful, if you're not strong enough, you'll get pulled into that. Because everywhere the world is going in that direction. Right? So it's being able to keep content, like be able to, we obviously want the most, like, the blessings and whatnot. But it's being able to stand firm, control our mind, allow, the casting down the thoughts, being able to see what the adversary is throwing at us and see them for what they really are, rather than to fall for the illusion to pull us in, only to destroy us. Right? This is the time that we're in. So, I'm going to leave that there. Any other questions, statements? All right. What's our homework? I gave you guys, we got some homework. We got to have some homework. What's the homework? Well, the homework is we're going to work on bringing this flesh into submission. We're going to examine the flesh and say, okay, you know what? Where's my weaknesses? In fact, you know what we're going to do? We're going to say, okay, you know what? We're going to start fasting more often. Because we have to learn, we have to start really working on disciplining and bringing our flesh into submission, rather than allowing our flesh to lead us and control us. Right? So I'll leave that there. As I said, Shabbat Shalom, family. Let's get into the announcements. So we can unplug that. I was wondering where that music was coming from. Just unplug the computer itself. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, so we got the Hebrew Bible Academy, and that is happening Sunday, August 28th. Those that are still looking to enroll, please do. You can do so by going on HistoryTimes.org. Once again, if you're looking to enroll in the upcoming Hebrew Bible Academy, you can do so by going on HistoryTimes.org. Prayer requests. So we're still praying for Brother Shmar family. Prayer also for Brother Jermaine's neighbor that has lost her husband due to a heart attack. We're asking that you also keep that same Brother Jermaine's neighbor, continue to keep them in prayers, right? Just to give an update, the depression and whatnot, pretty much they had to, hospital had to come again, ambulance had to come again. So we're praying for them. Also praying for Brother Chris and family, praying for the health of Sister Hedessa, asking for a hedge of protection, for strength, just dealing with his spiritual attacks that continue to weigh her down. Praying also for healing and restoration for the Most High, for Mama's son Joshua, praying also for strength and endurance for Ma Angelas as she nurses him back to health. Still praying for Sister Millie's mom, Sister Vermaine, struggling with the autoimmune, or better yet, no, we're praying to get the...
If we can have a prayer for her on Friday coming.
On Friday coming?
Yeah, they're going to do a biopsy to see
what was going on, right? Okay. So we're praying in order that the biopsy, that they find nothing. So we'll post that in the chat as a reminder as well. Continue. Praying for Sister Sam. As many of us know, the time of delivery is fastly approaching, so we're just praying, keeping her in our prayers, that the baby come out the child. That comes out A-OK, with the Most High's hand and protection. We're just praying for them, the family as a whole. Praying for Sister Marcia's mom who suffered from health issues. Praying also for strength for Sister Marcia as she assists her mom during this time. Continue. Praying also for Sister Sheena's grandmother who is currently in the hospital. So definitely praying for Sister Sheena's mom. Praying for a swift recovery and for the family to have wisdom on how to protect and encourage her granddaughter as she is getting older. I also have one. Can you go? Yeah, there you go. Prayer also for Jermaine. So no, go back. There's one more for Brother Jermaine. Prayer for Brother Jermaine's friend, Delane, and the Robinson family. She's in need of prayer for healing, comfort, and strength after giving birth. So just to give not too much detail, but just gave birth recently. They did the C-section procedure, having complications with that and the healing of that. So we're just praying that the Most High really heal her, and if possible, we can go a little bit further. But we're just praying for healing right now. But that's the most important part. Health. And that is it for our prayer request for this week. Let's go to the other announcements, please. So they have ice cream. So we got Tabernacle coming up.
Yeah.
And we got guest speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So, bear with me. I'm not Sister Charlene or Sister Kimberly. I'm not great with pronouncements, but I'll do my best. So we know Tabernacles is coming up September 17th to the 24th. And as everyone knows, the deadline has pretty much passed to make your payments. If you haven't made a payment and you've spoken to someone in the VC committee, you've spoken to leadership, then that doesn't apply to you, that, it's closed. But if you haven't, then please see someone from VC committee to kind of just narrow out all the little kinks of the reasons why and all that kind of stuff. So, and also too, for some of us, I know an email or a message has been sent out to you if you haven't made the payment and you've made arrangements to make your payment today. So you can head over to the table where Brother Chris is. Brother Chris, can you put your hand in there? All right. Okay, so for those doing a workshop, you either signed up already or those who would still like to sign up, you have until next Shabbat to sign up. There will be a meeting for those who signed up to actually do a workshop, and we're going to just have a meeting of the minds to discuss what it is that everybody wants to do. So that will be next Shabbat, so please plan for that after Shabbat next week. You will be staying to have that conversation. Next, hospitality crew has asked that anyone who has a grill that they can lend while we are at Tabernacles for some of the provisions that will be provided on behalf of the church. That if you can please see Sister Tina. Sister Tina, can you put your, maybe you can stand up. I feel like I don't want to put you on the spot. All right, Sister Tina, if you are able to allow us to use your grill that day. So it's nothing before Tabernacles, it's while we're there, if we can use your grill while we're there. So please, if you're able, please see Sister Tina. Next week she'll be up here asking. Okay. And I think that's it. Yeah, we have Tabernacle tips from Brother Caleb. Brother Caleb, come on down. Winner, Daniel.
Funny. Shalom, family. So this is the last presentation. Slide, please. Let's come. Come on, let's believe more. What's the music again, sister?
All right, I found it.
Okay, while we're waiting, I'm going to show you something. I'm keeping silent so you take in the image. So all these are excellent mosquito repellents. They work well. They push away the mosquitoes. They also push away life in your body. Because all these have DEET inside of them. DEET is a poison, okay? And some of these are like, whoa. This one is 30%. 30% of this bottle is DEET. Okay? So you don't want to use those if you want to be healthy. Okay? So we are talking camping. The best. I didn't camp all my life. I tell you, all my summers, I was in the teaching industry. And I had all my summers off, so I camped forever all my life. And the best I found, trying to find it, citronella.
That's good.
This little bottle of citronella will last you at least 3 years, 4 years maybe, okay? It's very powerful. Citron. What is citron? Citron. Lemon, okay? Citronella. It's a nice perfume. It should be the only perfume you're wearing at the Feast of Tabernacle, because the other that you dab yourself with, they will attract the mosquitoes. Guaranteed. Okay? Even your deodorants, if they are perfume, the mosquitoes will say, ooh, look at that flesh. They will come after you. So, citronella essence that you can buy in health food stores, I don't know the price, but it's not expensive compared to this stuff that you buy here. Okay? And you want to, where do you go? You want to mix it with oil, okay? Almond oil. The reason for that is that the essence itself will evaporate very quickly, okay? It will work, but you'll have to put some every hour. If you mix it in oil, almond oil, it's going to last longer, okay? Because there's less evaporation. Understand? But you still have to put some every 3 to 4 hours. Okay? It will not last 12 hours. Because it is a very evaporating vapor. Is that English? Okay. Other essences like this peppermint, you can do a mixture if you want to enhance your perfume. Okay? Citronella, peppermint, clove. Mosquitoes hate clove. Neem oil, and there's a fourth one. Eucalyptus. Okay, so these four. Oh, we're there! Who is this? Thank you. Next, please. All right. So, homemade natural terror repellent. I'm going to read this. So this would be put on the WhatsApp, so you'll have the actual recipe. 12-ounce bottle of witch hazel. What's witch hazel? Who knows what witch hazel is? It's not your sister. Yes. You know what witch hazel is? What is it? Who is it? Okay, it's an herb, okay? In liquid form, witch hazel. It can replace the almond oil. It's It's the base for your recipe. All right, here goes, fast. Use alcohol-free or paraben-free variant of that which is oil, or the almond oil, okay? And then 15 drops of citronella, 10 drops of peppermint, 15 drops of lemongrass oil, and 10 drops of tea tree oil, okay? Don't put more than that. It will be lustful. I'm referring to the lesson we just had. Okay, next please. Other oil bases, you have the olive oil or the avocado oil. Okay. Other essences, rosemary, geranium, lavender, basil, thyme. We mentioned eucalyptus already. Eucalyptus contains 85% citronella. Okay. Next please. You can also mix in aloe vera. So if you get bitten, it's already going to be soothing us. Oh my, here we go. Oh no. Provincial park offenses. We're going camping in a park. And this I mentioned because most people don't know that. Okay? We're not going in the wild. We're going in the park. Does the park belong to you? No. You pay taxes for it, right? But it doesn't belong to us. There's laws that we need to follow. So I will read them. So when we get to camp, you might say, oh, I didn't know this. There's one basic rule in Ontario parks. Have respect and consideration for your fellow visitors. You're not by yourself, okay? You're not by yourself. There's other people around you. The registered permit holder, which is the church. Okay? Somebody in the church has the permit for us to be there. Okay? That person is responsible for the conduct of all the campsite occupants and could be charged with an offense based on the actions of the occupants, okay? And you just want to know that, okay? Because you want to go and you want to have a party and, hey, this is my forest, I live here, the most I gave me the woods to live in, okay? Not quite true, okay? You'll have the dominion after Christ comes back. Okay? Right now, who has the dominion? Esau. Okay, these laws are enforced. So there's law enforcers in the park, and they have the same power as Ontario Provincial Police. They have the same power in the park. So just know that, okay? They're not just hired students for the summer. They are policemen. Many of the listed offenses could result in eviction, okay? And I've seen that before, people getting evicted from the park. Who wants to get evicted? Nobody? You can go back home and have lunch. There's nobody who wants to get evicted. So what do we do to not get evicted? We just follow the laws of the park. So here are some of them. Next, please. Okay? I'll just do them by memory so that I don't read. Okay? So, quietness. There is a curfew at 11 o'clock. Okay? Now we are in a group camping site. We're kind of separated from the other campers. But at night, the sound carries. Okay? And actually, there's not only the campers around. We're right near the street, and there's houses across the street that we don't see. Okay? And a few years ago, these people called the park police, and they said, "Oh, there's people making noise after 11." So they came to shut us down. Okay? Politely ask us to refrain from making noise after 11. So you can still talk. No, you can still enjoy yourself. No, but the time has to be quiet. are Israel, okay? The Messiah gave us the earth, okay? That's the reaction of us, Israel. I say us because I'm darker than you think, okay? It's just a question of respect, okay? Respect for others, okay? If you represent God and if you represent goodness, why would you keep the neighbors from having their sleep or go to work next morning? Okay? We're not by ourselves. If you don't like it, then we need to go to the full north where there's nobody around. Okay? Too many mosquitoes there, too many flies. We're not going there. Okay? So just heed that. Just heed the fact that there are laws in the park. No, you're not at home. This is not your park. And already I've seen some people say, what do you mean we can't make noise and enjoy ourselves after 11? We can enjoy ourselves after 11, but we cannot make noise.
No drum.
Okay? That's something else. Okay? All right. Also, there's another law that says you cannot pick. I'm going to get another reaction. You cannot pick woods. You cannot chop down a tree, even if it's dead and it's standing up. You cannot go in the woods and take dead wood. It's a law of the park, whether you agree with it or not. Okay? So you have a choice. Okay? Okay? You can cheat the law, but if you get caught, it's eviction. Your choice. Not being a party pooper. I'm being a party giver. Yes.
So I never really been camping before. So why can't you take the wood that's
It all has to do with the rule of Esau.
No.
It's for them. It's about the ecology. The wood spoils in the earth and it makes food for the other trees around. Okay? That's their explanation. If every one of us, throughout all summer days, because there's campers every day of the summer, if everybody takes one piece of wood from the ground, at the end of the summer, there's no more wood. Okay? So the trees don't feed on it. They have no food to feed on. That's the reason they do. Okay? And it makes sense. Okay? So we're not the only ones going camping. There's other people going camping also. Year after year after year, day after day after day. And this has happened in Europe also. Like people that have been taken from the forest when they go camping and there's no more wood. Even the trees have died. Got it?
Yes, sir.
All right, next please. So here are the prices of the fines, for example, okay? If you make excessive noise, what? Israel is noisy? Nah, we're not noisy. We're just happy. Okay? There's fines, okay? You can't play the radio. So if you have your car with the big sound system in your car and you want to have fun, that's the fine you pay, $75. And again, it's not the question of the money, it's a question of the respect for others, okay? People come to camp to be peaceful, yes?
In regards to playing music from your car, is that during the day or just after 11?
All hours.
All hours.
Now, at excessive volume, okay?
Okay.
Now, you can have music in your car playing and you're sitting by your car, that's fine. But if you lift up the sound so all the camp hears it, you can rest assured that the neighbors are hearing it also. That's how it is. Okay? Any questions on that? No? Again, we don't need to comply. We have the choice to comply or not. Your choice. Okay? Next please. Litter. Yeah, keep it clean. And show your kids also. Because every year after camp, we clean up. And what we see is, those little papers that cover the straws on drinking bottles, not bottles, but packs. It's full of them everywhere, okay? So teach your kids to pick them up, not to pick them up, to not throw them on the floor. Candy wrappers galore. Oh, it's just one candy wrap. No. It's 100 times 7 days. It's 700 candy wraps. Okay? Again, it's a question of respect. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah, you get a car permit, it must be on your car. Just know that. That's a simple note. You want to know that. Next, please. Next, please. So it goes on and on. You can't hunt, you can't kill animals, okay? One year some people bought their bow and arrow or a sack. Okay? Shoot turkeys around. Okay? These turkeys are not yours. Oh, I thought the Mosai gave wild turkeys to all of us. Yes, but they're in the park. Those in the park belong to the park. Okay? I live in the park, and I have wild turkey in my home. And if I kill them, I can get fined, even if I'm making mistakes. It's that bad, okay? It's going to change. It's going to change when we get the kingdom. All right, next. Recap. What are the essentials? Because a lot of people were not here. What have you learned in the last 4 weeks? Very fast. What's essential?
Wool blanket.
Tent. Wool blanket.
Layers.
Carpet on the floor. Carpet in front of your tent. Yes.
Tarp on top of the tent.
Tarp on top of. That's a very, very important one. A tarp on top. Okay. Who was in the rain yesterday? Like here in Brampton, there was a heavy rain. Okay. For 1 hour, it brought buckets, literally.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a tarp over your over your tent, you're going to have buckets of water in your tent. Okay? Because the power of that driven water goes through that thin material. The tents are water resistant. They're not waterproof. Okay. What else have we learned? Layers. What else? Sorry? Change your socks in the night. Change everything in the night. Okay? Bring some pajamas. Okay? Then we'll have a pajama party. Okay? No. You put your pajama on only when you go to bed. Okay? Because if you're out at night, enjoying the fire in your pajamas, the pajamas are going to get wet because of the dew. Okay? What else have we learned? Very good. Now, in the morning, you put your sleeping bag in the sun, so it gets rid of the humidity, and then you roll it tight. You put it in your tent, roll tight till the evening, so it does not take in the humidity during the day. All right? And that was it for camping tips. Sorry? Candle lanterns, okay? If you are worried that you're going to be cold a bit, there's candle lanterns, okay? You cannot burn a live candle in a tent unless it's protected. Okay? Tents are very fire-loving animals. Okay? If you put a live flame near the tent, whoosh, they do that, okay? Yes, Adasa.
Woolen sweater, if you can find that, basically it's very useful. Because the nights are very cold, but in the day it's quite hot.
They're warm, yes.
Woolen sweater and that it will be good.
Yes, even shorts. No? You can wear shorts in the daytime. It's that warm. Okay. Bring a winter coat. Oh, yes, yes, yes. You'll be happy you did. Oh, boy. I forgot my winter coat. It gets cold in the evening. Okay. It does get cold, more than you think. No? Right now, feel it. We're in August. Boy, it's hot. Eh? But when you reach end of September, it's cold, very cold in the evening. Okay? Goes down to almost 0 degrees. You've seen it. 1 degree, 2 degrees. It's kind of cold. All right? Bless you all.
All right. If Deacon has anything else, we're gonna have the choir come up. Keys and trumpet. Deacon's gonna come up. Trumpets is in 2 weeks. Bring your oblations for the first night and that Sunday as well. Any Deacon?
Alright, sorry guys. Multitasking today. Alright, so I know Brother Rob named all the rules and whatnot. We're gonna have some fun at Tabernacle, guys. I can remind you guys of that. We're having some fun at Tabernacles. And you know, for those that did their past experience or whatnot, we had scenarios where like, you know, everybody that lived around us was like, who are these incredible people staying at the campsite? We heard the singing, we heard the praising, all praise to the Most High. And then we had scenarios where we're like, we can do better, guys. But so the whole idea is that we want to make sure that we do a great job representing the Most High. We're mindful of our surroundings and the people around us and whatnot, but that we leave them with an impression as in, who are those people? Because we enjoyed the praising, the fellowship, everything that we've seen and we heard, we enjoyed it. We want to know who these people are. And that's the impression that we want to leave as we go about and celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. Huh? Right? So we're going to be singing, you know, but we're also going to be, as I said, mindful and respectful, not only about the park, but also with one another. Right? Because there's times where some of us want a little bit early, and there's times where one of us want to sing late, and we want to make sure that we're mindful of one another. Huh? So get your bags packed, suits packed, food packed, and let's get ready to go because we are going to have a lot of fun with Tabernacle this year. Huh? Blowing of the trumpets, September 3rd, right? We will be breaking bread. So next week, I know next week is the last week of the month where we do the communion breaking the bread. We're going to do everything, blowing of the trumpets. So just to let everyone know, we won't have communion next week. We're going to pass that blowing of the trumpets. So just a reminder of that. Also, want to give a warm welcome. Get drum roll. All right. Warm drum roll to our sister joining us. You're here full time now? So joining us from the Jamaica body. She's full time here now. So Sister Alika. Now, quick question, were you under, what body were you under? So you know there, Brother Dale, Deacon Dale. Alright, so Deacon Dale, so you know, that make her feel welcome and at home. Deacon Dale probably tender her. And you spoke to him since he's up here too. So let's make her feel welcome, make her feel at home, okay guys? So let's do this how we normally do. Let's sing on out, and then we will pray on out, and that will conclude today's Shabbat.
power of Jacob, of Israel, Heavenly Father, we come before you, Father. Thanking you, Father, for getting us through another week, for getting us to come before you and serve on another Shabbat, Father. We pray, Father, that you strengthen us, Father, that you strengthen our spirits, Father, to overcome this flesh, Father. You help us to be victorious over this battle, Father. Father, in these last days, we need you more than ever, Father. We ask, Father, that you just continue to renew our minds, our spirits. Continue to help us, Father, to have eyes to see, Father, the darkness in this world, Father. And most of all, Father, to stand firm, Father, in the hope and in the belief that you have given us, Father. Help us to subdue this flesh, Father, to bring it into subjection, Father. Help us, Father, to strengthen our spirit and allow this spirit to shine, Father, in these last days, Father. Help us, Father, to do the work that Christ has given us, Father, and that is to free souls, Father, to bring them to you. To take those, Father, that have been in the prison house, Father, and bring them to your light, Father. So we pray, Father, throughout the four corners of the earth, that you bless and heal your people, Father. You bless and heal all those that are seeking you, Father, that put their hope in you, Father. And all those, Father, that are still in darkness, Father, searching for truth, searching for righteousness, Father. That we pray, Father, that you would open their eyes, Father. That you would call them, Father, to your salvation. Call them, Father, to your truth, Father. So we pray, Father, for those that are not here. We pray for those that are sick. We pray for your church throughout the four corners of the earth, Father. We pray for the elders, deacons, and bishops, Father. And we just pray, Father, that you keep us strong, you keep us firm, Father, you keep us renewed, you keep us in the spirit, Father, and most of all, Father, you keep us being grateful towards you, Father. And not allowing anything, Father, to keep us away from you, Father. Our life, our source of our life, our strength, Father, and our foundation. And Christ, our Mashiach, which is our rock, Father. We thank you, Father, for providing a way for us. We thank you for the sacrifice that your Son has been for us, Father, for giving us a way back to you, Father, back to the promises, and back to the covenant, Father. So we thank you. We're forever grateful, forever in debt for the cost that he has paid for us, Father. So we just pray, Father, that we can finish this race strong and that we can get the victory, Father, and that we can be part of the kingdom of our dearly beloved Son, of your dearly beloved Son, and our dearly beloved King and High Priest, Yeshua, the Mashiach. And this we pray in Yeshua's name. Amen. So,
Amen.
Shemai, Yasharala, Ahaya, Alahaino, Ahaya, Akkad. Shemai, Yasharala, Ahaya, Alahaino, Ahaya, Akkad. Shemai, Yasharala, Ahaya, Alahaino, Ahaya, Akkad. Hear, O Israel, the Most High our power, Ahaya, Ahaya is one. Amen. One. Yasharala.